perfect counterweight to Iliad 23 is Odyssey 2. This is the book which begins with a council called by Telemachus. He's been advised by Mentes. You remember, that's the disguise of Athena in Book 1. He's been advised by Mentes to call that council, and he decides to do so. Now, the reaction of the people of Ithaca to Telemachus calling the council indicates something very important about what we might call the political themes of the Odyssey. Here's how it goes at the beginning of Book 2. Now when the young dawn showed again with her rosy fingers, the dear son of Odysseus stirred from where he was sleeping, and put on his clothes, and slung a sharp sword over his shoulder. Underneath his shining feet he bound the fair sandals, and went on his way from the chamber like a god in presence. He gave the word now to his clear-voiced heralds to summon by proclamation to assembly the flowing-haired Achaeans, and the heralds made their cry, and the men were assembled swiftly. Now when they were all assembled in one place together, he went on his way to assembly, in his hands holding a bronze spear, not all alone, but a pair of light-footed dogs went with him. Athena drifted an enchantment of grace upon him, and all the people had their eyes on him as he came forward. He sat in his father's seat, and the elders made way before him. The first now to speak to them was the hero Aegyptios, who was bent over with age, and had seen things beyond number. His own dear son Antiphos the spearman had gone off with godlike Odysseus to Ilion, land of good horses. Ilion is Troy, of course. In the hollow ships, and now the wild Cyclops had killed him deep in his cave, and this was the last man he had eaten. He had 3 other sons. One of them, Eurynomus, went with the suitors, the other 2 kept the estates of their fathers. Even so he could not forget the lost one. He grieved and mourned for him, and it was in tears for him now that he stood forth and addressed them. Hear me now, men of Ithaca, and the word I give you. Never has there been an assembly of us or any session since great Odysseus went away in the hollow vessels. Now who has gathered us in this way? What need has befallen which of the younger men, or one of us who are older? Has he been hearing some message about the return of the army, which having heard it first he could now explain to us? Or has he some other public matter to set forth and argue? I think he is a good man and useful. So may Zeus grant him good accomplishment for whatever it is his mind desires. He spoke, and the dear son of Odysseus was glad for the omen, nor did he remain seated long. His heart was for speaking, and he stood in the middle of the assembly. So what you see here is a political situation that is referred to as being abnormal. That is, there hasn't been an assembly like this since Odysseus went away. And now this man, Aegyptios, who has the son who went with Odysseus, who we are told has died now in the cave of the Cyclops, he gets up and says, what's going on? Why are we having an assembly now? I think it's a good idea for us to have an assembly. Now, I think what we see here is a kind of break that's created by the Trojan War. And we see the movement towards the polis, but it's a movement that is interrupted by the war. The fact that many young men have died with Odysseus, and now many more young men are going to die when the suitors die. And that's something that the audience would have known as the bard sang about this. And Telemachus is going to get up and try to provide leadership. And the leadership that he's going to provide is going to be felt, and this is really important, it's going to be felt as coming from a later generation. Now, eventually Odysseus is going to come back, but he's going to come back to an Ithaca that's been transformed by the fact that one generation of Ithacans has died in the war, and another generation is taking over, and they are not the kind of warlike people who went away to the Trojan War. This is a new world. It's a world, and this is something we see all over the Odyssey, a world of trade, a world of voyaging, a new economic world, and now also a new political world, founded on the one hand on the memory of the people who went to Troy, and on the other hand an awareness of the new situation. So this is a kind of counterweight to the maybe more conservative Iliad that pays attention to the tombs of heroes and to hero cult. What we have here is a new political situation in a kind of new economic reality, and that is another impetus towards the polis, the trade, the developing economy, which hasn't been there from 1200 BCE to around 800 BCE, the time that's called the Dark Age, the time when the economy collapsed. Here it is coming back, and people are coming from Phoenicia, and among other things, one of the things they're bringing from the East is writing, which ironically enough is going to be the thing that kills the bardic tradition and turns it into this fossil.